The dry wind carried the scent of dust and desperation as the sun cast long shadows across the African savanna. A crowd gathered near the old conservation station, volunteers, tourists, and a few rangers, all murmuring in disbelief at the ragged man standing before them. His clothes were frayed, his hair unkempt, and his skin weathered by the sun. To them, he was just another drifter, a nobody. Laughter rippled through the group. You? Help a baby giraffe? What could you possibly do? One of the tourists sneered. The man didn't flinch. He simply looked past them toward the fragile creature in the enclosure, a newborn giraffe, barely able to stand. Its once bright eyes were dulled by suffering, its frail body trembling under the weight of parasites that clung to its skin like a living curse. The rangers had tried everything: anti-parasitics, herbal treatments, even isolation. But nothing worked. The calf was slipping away. The man took a slow step forward, his presence unsettling in a way no one could quite explain. "Let me try," he said, his voice steady. The head ranger scoffed. "And what makes you think you know more than us? You look like you haven't seen a real meal in days." Silence. A pause too long. A hesitation too heavy. Then the man spoke again, softer this time. "Because I've seen this before." Something in his tone made the crowd shift uneasily. There was a certainty in his words, something beyond experience, something deeper, something hidden. He knelt beside the calf, running his calloused hands over its bony frame, his fingers brushing against the knots of infection. His eyes darkened. He knew exactly what this was. One of the volunteers whispered, "Who is this guy?" No one had an answer. As the sun dipped lower, the man got to work. He pulled a small pouch from the depths of his tattered coat, revealing dried herbs, powders, and vials of unknown liquids. The rangers watched with skepticism, but something kept them from stopping him. His movements were too precise, too practiced. He mixed a concoction with water, gently coaxing the giraffe to drink. Then, he reached into the dirt, pulled out a handful of leaves from a plant the others had ignored, and crushed them into a paste. He rubbed the mixture onto the calf's skin, working methodically, as if he had done this 100 times before. The air grew thick with tension. The next morning, the whispers began. The calf it standing. A murmur spread through the station. By midday, the giraffe was stronger, its eyes flickering with a spark of life no one had expected. The parasites dying, the infection receding, the disbelief in the ranger's eyes turned to something else. Something closer to fear. One of them finally demanded, "How did you know?" The man dusted off his hands, his gaze steady. "I told you. I've seen this before." But before they could press further, he turned away, as if the conversation no longer concerned him. And then the rumors started. Someone had recognized him, not from a place like this, but from headlines, from whispers of something much, much bigger. A story buried under years of secrecy. He used to own. Didn't he disappear after? That can't be him. He was supposed to be. No one could say it outright, but the realization clawed its way through them. He wasn't just a drifter. He wasn't just someone who had seen this before. And then, just as suddenly as he had arrived, he was gone. The station workers found an old newspaper crumpled near the supply shed later that evening. An article about a man who had once walked among billionaires, who had vanished without a trace after a betrayal too deep to mend. A man who, rumor had it, still had access to a hidden fortune, one no one had ever found. But none of that mattered now, because the baby giraffe stood tall against the setting sun, alive, breathing, saved. And somewhere, out in the vast, endless wilderness, the man walked on, his past still chasing him, his secrets still waiting to be uncovered.